reply current update and then fire map as well. So if you'd like to be part of that, feel free to scan this. It's the information. We're just asking for your email. That goes to me. We share it in sources. It's just a way for us to communicate with you in real time every morning with a map and update. We're going to roll right into our fire update. We have our incident commander en route right now. We also have our operations sections chief on the fire, Ben Engelhardt. So I'm going to introduce him and let him just kind of roll right into this. These guys are extremely busy tonight. They've got super scoopers and air attack over the fire right now. So he just came off the line. He'll be here to give us a quick update and then back out to the fire line. So yeah,
thank you very much, Brandon. Good evening. Like Brandon said, my name is Ben Engelhardt. Here's the operations for this type 3 incident. So this fire started on June 19th. I came in on the 27th. At that point, type 4 fire. They were struggling to get resources due to shortages across the state and shortages of aircraft, shortages of personnel, and you guys were coming out of a hot drying trend and had a bunch of lightning light up the state of Alaska. A lot of it north, and a friend of mine was the IC on this, and they asked me to come up and help. Started my career up here in Alaska as a firefighter out of Copper River. Spent 16 years up here, and then moved south. So they ordered me up in Colorado, and I came up to assist and lend a hand with this. I'm going to give you a brief overview. Going to start at the 19th. So the last mapping we did of this was 4,300 acres on Nelchina Glacier. We're calling this the west flank. This is the east flank. And our goal is to keep the fire south of Eureka Creek. We've been successful at doing that thus far with a combination of aerial assets, checking it up, knowing that we had a shortage of firefighters across the state. We've been shipping firefighters up from the lower 48 to help assist with the state of Alaska across the entire state, mainly Fairbanks area. So our plan was to get in here on the west flank, find a solid aim point, a hollow spot, and be able to land and start going direct on this fire up the west edge to the north. Over the past 2 days, we've been able to insert 32 firefighters, set up 2 different house spots and start going direct on this. And that's opening up the fire's edge, taking the black edge, pulling it into the fire, backup step. And in the last 3 days, we've gotten a 1/4 inch a day. So Mother Nature here in Alaska doesn't put out fire, firefighters put out fire. And that's what we're doing, trying to get humans out there to help engage and secure that line. And they're making progress. Today, we flew in some pumps and hose, over a mile worth of hose. They secured a water source and started working up that west flank. In addition, today alone, we've flown 1 fuel cycle with air attack on the northern edge and right shoulder of this fire. Securing it with scoopers that are dropping water along the fire's edge, along with the green. So we're slowing the growth, we're slowing the progress, we're trying to hold it and check it up. Meanwhile, in between their fuel cycles, we're coming out, we're reconning, IDing heli spots on the eastern side with the idea we're looking at trying to insert another group of folks that are coming in tonight from Kansas. It's a module of another 11 people, and they're going to be inserted on this eastern edge. So we'll start working around the head of this thing, trying to pinch it off. Now, you guys know better than most folks. There's tundra out there, and when it rains, the fire tends to dig down, auger in, find what it can burn, and come back to life with sunlight and wind. So we're staying persistent, consistent on the fire, and we're not getting complacent just because of a little bit of rain. Rain again isn't gonna put out the fire if our fighters are. So that's kind of a quick, dirty, what's going on with the fire itself. In preparation of not being able to get resources in on the fire, we've done pre-existing team set us up for success, let me say it that way. With the idea, there's been a lot of structure protection from west of Eureka Lodge, east to, we'll say, Mark, what was your milepost, 139? 139, I would say just west of that, around Stump Creek. Anybody who's familiar with that? So we've done structure protection on the south side of the glen there. And what does that mean to you? So we've went in, we've triaged, ID'd the structures that need some work and improvement. We've also done mastication lines to the south of all the communities within this area. Munching down the fuel and then following up with hoseways and sprinklers, reinforcing in the event this thing, for some reason, did get across Eureka Creek. We would have good defendable space and be able to stay in there and fight. To complement that, knowing that the fire's at 4,300 acres and we're anticipating a high coming in, we also went another step further, trying to increase our odds and probability of success. Knowing the shortage of resources, we got a couple dozers in yesterday. And we started a dozer line, single blade, on the west side of Eureka Lodge, anchoring into the Glen Highway. And what an anchor means is something that can't burn. With the idea, we started off one blade, and I flew that earlier today in between fuel cycles of the scoopers and air tack flying over, dumping water on that northern head. And I could confidently say by the end of tonight, we would be really close to 2 miles so far. The chunk we're looking at is approximately 6 miles from west of Eureka Roadhouse to just shy of Stump Creek. Anybody who knows that big gravel pit on the south side of the road, another good anchor point. Still something that can't burn. The idea we're gonna tie it into there. We anticipate 3 days from the operators with heavy machinery. I was throwing in an extra hydraulics, mechanical problems and whatnot. So I'm anticipating 4 days, not being negative Nancy, just being realistic. Machinery does break down. That's kind of the down and dirty of it. Guess I'll open it up for questions now. Do you guys have any questions? I will say the community's been really happy with the work we're doing in there. Or I see it set up at gun site. We're also flying 2 helicopters out of the backside of gun site. And after tomorrow night, we'll have 1 stationed out there and staying, knowing that we now have 32 people with an additional 11 going in tonight. That'll be 44 folks out in the field overnight. And to up our medical capabilities in the event we need to transport anybody due to a medical emergency, we'll have that capability and not flying clear from Copper River out here. We're shortening that distance, trying to get that river known. Yeah.
If it jumps Eureka Creek, you expect it to make it to the highway?
You know, with the aviation assets we have available and the tools we have, I feel as though we would be able to slow it down to the point the dozer line would be complete by then, and we would still be able to meet the fire on our terms. So we would call the primary line the dozer line. The contingency line would be the mastication work around every one of the communities, and then fall back from that to the highway. I believe we're setting ourselves up for success.
So how far should structure should it be? But if you're cleared out 100 feet, no trees, nothing all the way around, are you gonna be in good shape there, or is there still a possibility?
Are we talking your structure sitting on a gravel pad, 100 feet around your structure?
Yeah,
Boy, you're sitting well above the average individual. Yeah. That's a bomb-proof residence. In addition, you literally have what we call a safety zone on your property. And in that situation, we'd be able to stay there, one, be safe, be able to work confidently knowing that we're not threatened or in harm's way.
Can you talk a little bit about the ready site go as far as time wise? I know you can't really give a time of how long you can alert people to get out of there, but just, is there any rough? Or how soon are these alerts going out?
So we have what you call ready, set and go lines in place. And the first ready line without having my map in front of me here is we'll use Eureka Creek as the ready.
Yeah.
How that looks for me doesn't really change a whole lot of what I'm doing. What that is an it's a notification process that when it hits that trigger point, we then notify our dispatch center. They would then notify MAC, knowing that it's in the Matanuska borough area. That's a jurisdiction. You would then receive your reverse 911 calls, notifying you guys that we're now in a ready phase. We're going to continue to stay engaged. It's not going to change the tempo of us at all. We're going to still continue to be productive and aggressively fight the fire. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I got a question. Where do you get water for the tankers? Are they getting it out of Teslina Lake?
Yeah, I believe so. I was trying to see that from your property, but never ended up catching them.
Awesome, Ben, I know you had to come off the line to come in. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
If you have additional questions, myself and Courtney in the back, we'll be here all evening and we can talk about the fire. We got a fire map over here. So if there's additional questions you have that you didn't get answered, or you just like some one-on-one time here until you guys aren't. So with that, I'll back up to you.
We're gonna take just like a 2-minute break real quick while Jenny and I set up for the second part of the meeting, which is to review the community wildfire protection plan that we've been writing for the Mendeltna and Nelchina communities. So we wanted to
Hey, can you hear me?
few things around.
Hello?
Kind of to just get an idea of who is going to stay for the community wildfire protection meeting this year. It pretty much covers from 161 on the Glen Highway until 134. This is the coverage area for this. If you live in the Lake Louise area, we have a different plan and we'll have a different meeting for that area. Because everybody looks like.
Cool. And if you haven't signed in, if you would take a minute and sign in, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Emily?
It was so easy to do, which is fine.
Emily?
You're within
Yeah.
you're within, yeah, in the Zoom call. That's fine.
Yeah, go ahead, Casey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, hold on just a second. All right, let's try it now.
Can you hear me?
It's a new tool. This is our first meeting with the owl, so.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify something that the IC said. So our notification system doesn't go out over reverse 911, but it'll send it to your smartphone device as long as you haven't disenabled the emergency alert system. So I just wanted to clarify that. So we won't be calling your home phone, your landline, but it'll come to your cell phone in that area.
Did everybody hear? This is how you would receive your emergency alert if the fire does cross and get into the ready or the set or the go.
Yeah.
So just make sure that that is enabled on your phone.
And Casey's responsible for that for the borough. That's his.
Yeah, he's
his
the
role
emergency
within it. So he will send that via text to your phones.
Super. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
that, Casey.
Yep, anytime.
Did everybody get a packet?
Yeah, that's what we're working on right. Oh. You have one to share, you might have one. Are you fine with sharing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. We have 4 extras if anybody wants one right in their hand.
Awesome. Thank you guys again for attending the second Community Wildfire Protection Plan meeting for the Mendeltna and Nelchina communities. The purpose of our meeting this evening is to review the Mendeltna and Nelchina CWPP, focusing on the community risk assessment and the action plan. And before we start, we're just going to introduce ourselves. My name is Emily Yorkstorp. I am the Community Wildfire Protection Plan Project Coordinator based out of the Copper River office.
My name is Jenny Butcher. I am the Wildland Fire Prevention Lead for the Copper River area and for the Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection.
A little bit of background information. This project was made possible through a cooperative agreement grant that we received from the Glen Ellen BLM field office. So the Valdez Copper River Area Forestry and Fire Protection has been working on this project for about 4.5 years. We've been soliciting information via online and mailed surveys, attending community gatherings, public events, and through formal and informal meetings. Our last formal meeting for communities of Mendeltna and Nelchina was October 1st of 2021. One challenge that we faced while doing these plans was assessing the wildfire risk within the community. And we used technical specialists through BLM Fiordland Fire Solutions and other agencies. We partnered with them to provide a standardized, data-driven risk assessment. By addressing the concerns in the risk assessment, we created an action plan that implements appropriate measures to reduce wildfire risk to this area, making it safer for not only the residents, but preserving natural and cultural resources. In addition to identifying appropriate measures, each of these prioritized risk assessments, making it possible for the different agencies and entities to seek funding to implement them. So with this project website, our website is something I would encourage everyone to take a moment and check out. This is a kind of a one-stop for the Copper River areas, forestry and fire protection. It has all of our up-to-date information. You can get your burn permit on here. You can get the fire information, phone number, fire history. All of these tabs have drop downs with them. We're going to be focusing on the CWPP by community. So those of you that are online, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment and typing into your browser community copperriverfirewise.org. I'll give you just a minute to do that. And then you'll go down to Mendeltna, Nelchina. And there's a little bit of background information. And soon, when this is published, there will be a button here that you could just click on and it'll take you directly to the State of Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection website, which will have the updated CWPP that you're looking at. And you'll hear us refer to CWPP throughout the whole meeting. That's the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. If you scroll down, you'll see the mapping for this area. And right here, you're going to see the document link, and you can just open it in a new tab for those of you that are online, and it's going to take you directly to the plan. So everyone that's in attendance tonight will have this in your packet, and those of you that are online, you can either follow online or on your own screen. Lastly, I just want to point out right here, we have this, please take the online survey. We're soliciting information regarding the action plan, which we'll go over in further detail towards the end of the meeting. We need to hear from the community. This plan isn't for Jenny and I, it's not for our office, it's for the community and for the members of the community to identify things that need to be, actions that need to be taken and entities that could potentially make those come to fruition. And before we go further, we're going to go over the planning map app. Again, has all sorts of information on it. Jenny's gonna go over it as soon as it loads.
So this is just a tool, it's a GIS tool that we've made into a simple to use map application. And it's a good spot to find a lot of information. So I'm just gonna go over a basic overview of it. All the colored areas that you see on the map are the boundaries for the different CWPPs in the Copper River Basin area. The Mendeltna Nelchina one is this one right here. It has really good satellite imagery on it. There's a list of layers over on the sidebar that you can click on or off by clicking the eyeball. So the eyeball shows them. It shows, in addition to the CWPP boundaries, it shows field areas that have been identified for field treatments. It shows our fire management response options. There's two different layers on here of land ownership. So it'll show you if it's like federal land, state land, private land, native allotment land, if we were to click on that. National park land. So two different layers that you can look at with that. We've created a vegetation layer, which we'll talk a little bit more about later in the risk assessment that shows the hazard of the potential vegetative fuels surrounding the community in high fire danger conditions. And then there's just a regular vegetation map, a fire history map, which I think is really interesting to look at. And there's a layer of mile markers on the road. If you zoom in far enough, those will show up. So right here. And then a fire interval map for areas. So sort of a more science-based look at how often stand replacement fires take place in areas. So we've created this as a tool that's available to the public as a source of information, and it's nice to use in planning. Thank you.
Okay, so going back to our document, so we're gonna walk through this document, keeping in mind that the focus of this meeting is the community risk assessment and to go over the action plan.
I will add in though, that this CWPP is in the final stages. This is the opportunity for input on it now, so even if it's not at this meeting, if you take this home and you find certain edits or things that could be more clarified, or maybe something that is a little incorrect that we could better articulate in it, we really want your input. This is the time to do it right now. This window of time.
So the executive summary provides justification and an overview of the Mendeltna Nelchina CWPP. The background provides information related to the overall goal of wildland fire protection and land management by both state and federal agencies, and references acts like for land management policy and justification for funding. Collaboration, these are the entities that all contributing entities that provided input and helped to create this document. And I would like to note here, we notice that there is a typo. This mile marker will change to the correct.
It's 134.5, not 145.5.
The river, right?
It includes the structures that are right at that, I think it's locally known as the Slide Mountain area.
It's western, right? Or Mendeltna.
The community profile includes the 2020 census data and an overview of critical facilities, seasonal factors that contribute to wildland fire risk to the Mendeltna Nelchina area, and a brief wildland fire history. Up to this point, do we have any questions? I know we're moving through it kind of fast. Okay, and then we move on to the community risk assessment, where I'm gonna turn it over to Jenny.
All right, so, one of the things we did when creating a community risk assessment was create a, vegetation type risk map. And, you can see it displayed on the page. There's also a layer on the, map app that I showed you. Basically, the image shows vegetative fuels with colors that correspond to their flammability, or basically their fire danger and prime fire weather conditions. Vegetation types that are shown in red are typically the coniferous needle-bearing trees, which are primarily black and spruce. They're very prone to fire, very flammable, wind receptive and high fire danger conditions. The orange colors show more of a mosaic mix of spruce and hardwood component, which is not quite as flammable as a continuous spruce forest. And then the yellow tones are more of the hardwoods, which would include aspen trees and cottonwoods, poplars, the willow and alder brush components. And then areas that are shown in the green and blue are more the subalpine or riparian areas, which are a lot less receptive to fire. So looking at the map, you can see that there definitely, especially to the south of the highway, is a lot of very, potentially flammable vegetative component, continuous spruce forest. To the north of the highway, there's a little bit more elevation terrain and lake country, but the area has a lot of exposure from those fuels. So going through the risk assessment, I turn to the next page on page 12. The criteria that we used, or the rating elements that we used, is we did a hazard analysis of the fuels from inside the community, or we could maybe say like the highway corridor, out 1 mile. We also did a risk hazard analysis of the availability of fuels outside of the community, that is 1 to 10 miles. We did an assessment of the both natural and man-made barriers in the area. We looked at fire protection, resource availability. We did a community overview fire-wise rating, and then we came up with an overall rating for this planning area. Additionally, just for parts of the CWPP to reference, or at least to know about the criteria that we use for the risk assessment, is located in Appendix B. Appendix C is the information that was provided to us, both using the criteria and other resources available from Fiordland Fire Solutions, who was contracted out to provide their input. And then additionally, and Emily already mentioned this, but we used multi-agency fire managers and technical specialists to provide input to come out with this risk assessment. So just to recap a couple as we go through these, for the first area, fuels inside the community, that was given a rating of high for the risk of fire spreading within the community. Basically, it has to do with the type of fuel types that are found inside the community, the high spruce component of fuel types, and then the more probability of human-caused fires, which coincidentally could be, can be extinguished by people if the proper resources and training are available for people to get to them in time. Some of the areas that we identified, or times that we identified as highest concern, is in the springtime, during that pre-green up period where dry grass and light brushy vegetation is prevalent around areas that have been previously cleared. And that's the first type of vegetation that grows back, and this is commonly found around house sites. These fuels are very receptive to fire, the dry grasses are, and fire can spread very rapidly through those fuels. So that was one thing that we identified to address, and also the prevalence of hazmat around structures, just being an additional hazard for first responders responding. Looking at the fuels 1 to 10 miles outside of the community, again, the rating summary that we came up with, that the potential for large fires to impact this area is high due to the prevalence of the high concentrations of spruce, specifically those areas of continuous black spruce and the white spruce component. Additionally, in the summertime, there's an influx of both the spring, summer, and fall, an influx of tourists into the area, recreational users, hunters and subsistence users, and so this is a potential additional fire start that would happen outside of the corridor of the highway, or what we call the urban wildland interface where people live. And additionally, in the summertime, this area is very prone to lightning activity, which, if given the proper, hot and dry fuel conditions, can lead to a start. Moving on to the next page, page 14. The rating for barriers again was high. Natural barriers in the area that could provide either an anchor point or a stocking point for fires to possibly not spread across would be the Little and Big Nelchina River. There's other water features like lakes to the north. However, they can, potentially slow fire spread. However, in hot and dry windy conditions, it's pretty easily for fires to spread or embers to cause fires to spread past these areas. For human-made barriers, the Glen Highway runs east-west through the planning area. And this is the highway is a very good barrier and a place for engagement for resources if a fire were to bump up into that area. Additionally, there's gravel roads. There's some gravel pits in the area present that offer engagement or possibly, fire breaks, for lack of better words, from fire spreading. Yeah, I think that's all I have on that area. For fire protection resource availability. So this also received a rating of high. Per the criteria that we have, it states that adequate initial attack resources are more than 75 minutes away, and extended attack resources are more than 12 hours away to receive a rating of high. So the Copper River Area Division of Forestry and Fire Protection is the statutory fire protection agency for this area, at least when it comes to wildland fires and fires that can spread into the wildland. And our response times by road is 60 minutes, at least 60 plus minutes to get here. And we do have a helicopter that's available all summer long, May through the end of August. And it has a 30-minute response time. So those are the initial attack resources that are available here. Yes.
There was a statement made that MAPCOM would be the ones that would alert with the ready, set, go. And down at the bottom of that paragraph, just below the response time, it says Nelchina BFD is not currently registered with the Fire Marshal's office and does not receive notification from MAPCOM.
So that's correct. To clarify a couple of things, I spoke with Scott Fike today, the chief of the Glen Ridge Fire Department, to ask, what his role is in helping to cover fires out here. He said that they have extended their boundary, and so we'll be updating some of this. Their boundaries extended to mile marker 138. He said that I know what you're thinking, but if you live past 138, well, I don't think, I can't speak for it actually.
We're down to Glacier View, so.
Okay, I
So
think
we go with the MAPCOM.
you are, yeah. That's definitely worthwhile looking at. There's that area of a lack of coverage in between. And
Yeah, like is that stand Glacier View.
that's to your knowledge where MAPCOM response ends, at least from Palmer
Yeah.
or Sutton, I guess. So, it's certainly, something to be identified and, continue to work on addressing. So this will mostly be changed to our knowledge. We understand there's, an individual in the community who potentially has some fire equipment that they've been trying to get up and going and available, but to our knowledge, there's been no, organization of an Nelchina VFD, and so they'll be relying on Glenrich VFD to respond out here. Scott also told me today that, his hope would be, at least in the summertime, to have a fire response rig staged in this area. Of course, that would take help from people in the community to be able to be, trained and, use that piece of equipment properly to, if needed, but that is a hope, and we'll include it a little, we'll articulate that a little bit better in the action plan part of the CWPP. It won't be in there today, though.
And if this does change, if Nelchina does get their VSD up and going, this is a living document that can, changes and edits can be made, going through the correct process, but they can be made at any time.
Any other questions or comments on that?
Does anyone online have any questions up to now?
So we talked about, what we would call initial resources, so that's the resources that are available locally, being, the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection coming from the Taslina, Glen Allen area and Glenrich Fire Department. We also have, what we call extended attack, when an incident gets big, like the Nelchina Glacier fire, then we're relying on an influx of resources to come and help meet the needs of that incident. And, so to get, extended attack resources from either Fairbanks or Palmer Air Resources could get here in approximately 90 minutes. Crews in an ideal situation, if they were available right now, could get here in 6 to 12 minutes, but we know sometimes it can take a couple of days when there's high demand, for those crews. Oh, did I say minutes? That's okay. Oh,
We know what
yeah.
you meant.
Okay, I'm not sure what I just said, but,
I think you
Yeah.
got hours.
Yeah,
you got hours.
We can read.
okay, good. Moving on, so the community firewise route is the part, the criteria we looked up. There was, landscaping, findings, using, we use a lot of satellite imagery to look at some of these things, but our findings is that there's a lot of homes that don't have defensible space around them. So for the criteria, the way it's broke up into chunks, 35% of homes and communities or buildings don't have that defensible space around them for the firewise criteria. Construction components that, can help make your home more defensible against fire. I think I heard you mentioning about, having a big gravel pad and 100 feet cleared around your house. Another thing to look at is, the construction materials on your house. What's the roofing material made out of? Are the pine needles or any kind of debris and that sort of thing, are they resting in places, on decks? Or you have firewood piled up against your house or on your roof or your gutters where an ember from a nearby fire could land and then potentially ignite that burnable debris and potentially catch your house on fire. So that's another part of the firewising criteria. Again, putting skirting around the bottom of your house, if it's on, sonotubes or pillars or blocks or whatever. Most of the houses that burn down in a wildfire do not burn down from direct flame impingement. They burn down because embers from the fire blow into the area of the house and catch receptive fuels on fire. So that's part of the criteria. Water supply. A lot of folks, just out of curiosity, raise a hand. How many folks here have to haul water? Okay. And adversely, how many people have wells? Okay.
Have to haul water and we have a well.
And so, that's, you know, not, water supplies is definitely a concern, you know, what sort of volume of water do we have available? Does the community have a subsurface water source available? You know, that sort of thing. There's definitely surface water sources, but, that was part of the criteria. And then, of course, access roads. There's concerns with, you know, side roads not having names, labels on the roads. The brush coming right up to the sides of the road, so if that brush was on fire, it could make, you know, getting in or getting out difficult. And then even some of our houses having spaces where large, you know, fire equipment or emergency vehicles can turn around in is a concern with the access. So this, the community firewise rating also received a rating of high for all of those things.
Does anyone have any questions about that part of it? Yeah, go ahead.
Under the access, since the only two-lane road that's clearly marked is Richardson, shouldn't it say Glen?
It should say Glen.
Mine says Lynn. That's,
Oh, no, right here.
oh, good catch.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, well,
We've
we've
been
been,
writing
there's
10
some
of
little
these, so.
edits, so we really appreciate stuff like that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the main escape route for folks in the areas, if you live on a one-way, you know, if you live on access to your house is a one-way in, one-way out, that's something to think about, especially in event of those, you know, ready, set, go evacuation levels being, if you want to make sure you can get out of a one-way in, one-way out situation. But the main escape route out of this area is the Glen Highway. Potential safety zones that we identified in the area. And by safety zones, this means a place where people could gather to find, you know, potentially some sort of shelter, get more information on what's going on. Yeah, or just get out if you're displaced from your home to a different location. So this location here, the Mendeltna Community Chapel, is a potential safety zone. The Mendeltna Creek Lodge has been identified.
It doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah, maybe I'm at Nelchina then.
Yeah, in the parking area, I think the gravel.
Yeah, I know where the fireplace is, west of Mendeltna, so thank you. I think, that would be the Nelchina Lodge then. There's a gravel pit that we identified as well, that, people could relocate to temporarily. The Taslina airstrip, and then it's redundant, so we'll just have to take out number 2 completely or switch it around, but we haven't. And then that changed to Nelchina, so four potential identified safety zones.
Are there any other safety zones that you guys would like to see with this plan?
DOT.
The,
They're
The facility.
they're across the highway from it.
Yeah.
And they've got that huge lot right there, and it's
Do you know what mile that's at?
140, 141.
okay, we're looking for
Probably.
142 miles.
142 DOT facility.
There's another gravel pit sitting,
The one that's right across the street from it, so we can.
No. Towards Mendeltna Creek Lodge.
Oh, yeah.
So
The transfer site. They have a transfer site, it's actually sick, not anybody.
yeah, probably 149.
149, okay, we can look that up for sure.
As well,
Because that's a big,
we could pull up that map and look at the transfer site. I'm only as far as the gate, the transfer site. Approximately, where's the transfer site?
150 something?
51, maybe 150.
Oh, yeah, right here. Is that it?
That's the ground pit next to it, is to the left there.
Oh, it's to the left, okay. I think the gravel pit,
The gravel.
is there, if it's not gated, it would probably be a better location.
Yeah.
Okay,
This gravel pit's not gated. Okay, so it's one.
I mean, those would be like quick evacuation points if something was impeding near you. A better longer term one would be a place where there's a little more shelter and resources available. And at that point, some planning steps would start to take place. Cool, thank you for the input on that. So, moving on to the, next page on page, 16, all the rating criteria is for all the areas that, the components that we looked at all came up with a high risk of, fire and impact from fire for this area. You want to share the, wildfire risk.org sites or? It's listed in your CWPP. It's another resource that you can look at. I'll let Emily show it to you.
Yeah, wildfirerisk.org is a federal wildland fire resource tool that determines risk to homes at the national percentile rank. So to find your community, you can click on explore. And we'll just do Nelchina. It's the same, put Mendeltna in there, I'll pull up Mendeltna. So Nelchina has a very high risk of wildland fire. It's 95, it's in the 95th percentile. And that again is ranked on the whole United States, not just Alaska. So if you hover over the very high, it gives you the criteria for what very high is. Low is anything in the 40th percentile, medium is 40th to 70th percentile, high 70th to 90th, and very high is equal to or greater than the 90th percentile. I encourage you all to take a little bit of time and explore these tools that we've shown you guys, both our website as well as this wildfire.org. Very informative and have lots of graphs and information, more than you probably even need, but they're both very interesting and can provide a lot for wildfire.
I'll just comment on that, I think, there's two primary reasons for that very high rating. And one is, I think it's pretty obvious that the fuel type around us is very receptive to fire when the conditions support it. And then secondly, we're in a rural area, and so we just don't have the resources available to us that other places with higher populations and more infrastructure, for lack of better words, have. Which is probably why we live here. So we're gonna move on to the action plan. If any more questions on that section.
Does anyone online have any questions? If you do,
Yes, but I don't know how to can you hear me?
we got you.
Okay, yeah. What about us? We have propane bullet tanks next to our homes. Do we need to pull them out in high risk situations like this? Or maybe go down to a smaller size that could be more portable and we could pull it away as the fire advances toward our house. That's my only concern right now.
I can kind of answer your question.
All right.
And the answer would be to remove anything burnable around your tank. I understand it might be close to your structure, so not counting your structure, but removing any sort of vegetation around your tank. Making sure that it has a shut-off valve so that you can turn it off if you need to. If it is movable, of course, that would be a great option if you were evacuating away from your house and you thought it was, going to be in a passing fire front. Otherwise, I think measures could be taken to protect that tank and just ensure that all the lines and connections and valves and things on the tank were just in good maintenance and working order.
So if we just shut off the valve going to the house, it can't with extreme heat blow up or anything like that? Is that a safe assumption?
No, but I mean, if I've seen in structure fires where tanks, if they have direct, flame impingement next to them, eventually that liquid does boil and levy. So I certainly can't say that, but removing any vegetation around them, I don't know If
Yeah.
you're looking at structure protection and kids, have a way to set up sprinklers and to irrigate around the tanks. Have sprinklers running in your absence to keep them cool. Something to that
Yeah,
effect.
yeah.
Or get a smaller movable tank, I guess. Take it away from your house.
I actually have
Well,
similar.
yeah, it's up against my house. There's my house is on a gravel pad and there's clearance from the trees, but of course, like you said, embers could blow in and just start the whole, fire process. So I sent I think it's Brad who was sending out the updates this week.
Brandon?
Brandon, yeah, I sent him a photo of. I live on South Timberwolf Road, and I sent him a picture of the fire advancing. It looked pretty close to where I was, and then we had the rain, and it seemed like it stopped. So I guess no structures have been damaged at this point. Is that true? From the
Did you
fire?
say- Yeah, that is correct. So yeah. And, short answer to your question, I would, based off of what you're saying, I would just make efforts to protect that tank. It
Okay.
sounds like it's already got to start.
What's
with the
that?
gravel. It sounds like you already have a start with it being on a gravel pad.
Yeah, there's nothing around the tank. The valve isn't shut off at this point, but the propane's valve going to my Toyo stove inside the house is shut off. So I probably need to just shut the valve off on the big tank. But we're thinking of downsizing the size of the tank so we could disconnect it and flee with the tank if necessary, because it's one more flammable object that could
Right.
could ignite. So that's my thought.
It's certainly a consideration.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And if
Yeah.
you have questions about what you should do to firewise your home, Alaska Firewise is a
Right.
great resource. And we could mail you or leave you a booklet if you would like.
Okay. Yeah, I would. I'll email or text or email
Yeah, if
Brad.
you wanna put your name and your email in the chat, then I can reach out to you.
Okay. Hopefully, I could figure out how to do that. But I'm a little tech impaired, but I'll figure out what I need to do here.
Hit the chat
I'm
button.
I'm on
Pull
the
up.
I'm on the list for getting the updates uh from Brandon. So
Okay, you wanna just
yeah,
give me your name and I'll get your information from Brandon then.
yeah, Ron Couture is my name. Kichura.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ron.
Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing too. Appreciate it.
What was your question?
Mine was the same. My husband and I, we live on Summit Road, so we're pretty close as well. So we were thinking about the same issue. And we were obviously gonna do sprinklers and things like that, to keep things wet. But we thought maybe wet blanket and spread them over. I don't know, that would be even better, but over the tanks, essentially. As the other criteria.
They would be good while it was wet, I guess.
Right.
If it did conduct heat.
Right. There's certain road real maybe thing. I don't know.
I don't know, I know Jeff's been involved in the structure department before, but
Constant, the sprinklers is the better option.
Better option, yeah.
Make sure you get your vegetation cleared around your tank. Things, when bad things happen, when you shut your tank up.
all right. Moving on to the action plan. So taking the findings from the risk assessment. In addition to, we did, a couple of years ago, we did mail out surveys. And within the community to get input for needs, the community's desire for needs in the community. We determined and came up with a prioritized list of assessment findings to help mitigate the risk of fire danger to the community, and that can be found in the action plan. So page 17, and then probably moving on to 18, you can see the assessment findings are listed out on the bottom of page 17, but if we go to the next page, we actually set up a task and matrix of mitigation measures. So not only does it identify the assessment finding, it outlines tasks and then potential responsible entities. And we're really looking for more input in that area with any sort of, larger size agencies like the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection can apply for grants and then help make those grants available in communities for things like supporting firewising or potentially supporting, fuel reduction projects on mostly state land anyway, at this point, to protect larger areas. And we can help administer those things in your community, but we also, it would be really helpful if there's any organizations within the community that also, and VFDs, they have the ability to also apply for and administer the grants directly to your community. So we'll just, you want to go through, or you want to do this first one?
So our first assessment finding is dry grasses found around structures during pre-green up. We have associated tasks that could be taken to help implement the assessment finding. And the responsible entities we have are first and foremost are homeowners, and then the State of Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection.
We're just gonna start kind of going through these, and as we're talking about them, if different ideas pop up, we're probably not gonna read every single bullet point because everybody has it in front of them. Another finding was community roads don't have clear road signage, and we feel like that's something that can be taken up with the Department of Transportation, and something that the Division of Forestry can also probably help with identifying with the Department of Transportation to identify and label roads so that we have the same place names and directions when we're talking about locations.
Homes and businesses need to be fire-wise. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, Glenrich Volunteer Fire Department, homeowners, State of Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, and the Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection are the responsible entities that we identified.
The next two things are the concerns of long response times for responders and firefighters, and then of course, supporting those firefighters and first responders with, training and equipment needs. And the number one thing that would be most ideal is if this area had one, if it wasn't possible to have your own fire department, to have buy-in with the Glenrich Fire Department so that there was people who were trained and available to respond with equipment provided by the Glenrich Fire Department. And that would really help with cutting down those response times and stopping anything that was accessible while it was still small.
So with that goes the VFD training and equipment needs. Glenrich Volunteer Fire Department and the State of Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection.
The next thing was developing an evacuation plan. Ways that local entities could, or local community members could help with this would be helping to create structure maps and finding maps in the area, or structure location maps to make it known where all the sites are. This area also contains remote sites on lakes, Twin Lakes, John Lake, probably, more lakes that I'm not mentioning right now. And so just making sure that those are known in an evacuation plan and identified would be helpful. And then there is a local emergency planning committee that Jason Sievers has been heading up. He's the Daytona fire chief. And I think that's a pursuit of his, is to try to work on evacuation plans for the areas, but certainly community involvement in that could help get the ball rolling on getting that faster.
So moving on, the lack of a subsurface water source, the Copper River Development Association, we believe can help to get that created.
Unsafe burning practices, to a certain degree, that falls on all of us. To help, share those words, follow the burn permit system when we're doing debris burning or burn barrels in the, fire season months. That's a big role of the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection, is to help spread education on fire safety. And then also we'd like to, get the VFD more involved in helping to share some of that information.
Driveways inaccessible to emergency vehicles, so addressing like the egress and ingress concerns, which we talked about in the community risk assessment and identified that as an area of concern. So the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the State of Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. And again, if you guys have any other responsible entities that you think we should be naming, please tell us. Like, cause we can't think of them at all, so let us know if you have any input on them.
And then I'll also note, you may be thinking, wondering why we have the Bureau of Indian Affairs in there, but they have grants available for, it's not just native lands,
Ancestral.
it's,
And
Yeah.
all of Alaska is ancestral land, so it doesn't matter if it's private, public, native, federal, it doesn't matter, they're all ancestral lands.
okay, lack of communications, mainly you have pretty good radio communications out here as far as our emergency response, radios go, and Division of Forestry goes, but the problem mostly lies in with our VFDs needing to update their radios to newer technology radios, and it's a pretty hefty lift for the VFDs to buy new radio equipment. So the CWPP certainly supports any funding that the VFDs can find to help upgrade their equipment.
And again, like we talked about in the community risk assessment, community roads do not have clear roads.
You know what, that's redundant, that's redundant, okay, yeah, I'll make note of it.
Super, like we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so community, go ahead. Ron, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you. Yeah.
no problem. If you wanna hit the mute button, then we won't.
Right. Yeah. I turned my radio on. That's what's the problem. Sorry. All right. I'm learning.
Yeah, well, how brave to join online.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a community woody mass disposal site, this is something that's been identified in all of our communities. We all need to do firewising around our homes. We're all gonna have a bunch of brush. What are we gonna do with all that brush? Are we just gonna burn it in our yards? We need to have a community woody mass disposal site. So identifying and designated area for communities to dispose of their woody mass byproduct. And we've identified the State of Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection to spearhead that.
Potentially, but I don't know if it's something that could happen at the transfer site or not. Certainly, from that point, usually we burn the debris during safe times of year to burn it. But it would help. Finding a place so people were not burning debris in their yards would really help make the community safer. But it would have to be managed because, we found, that things that you don't want will end up in there if it's not, actively managed by somebody with, restricted access and hours that are open, and it outlined clearly what kind of debris you're willing to take. Otherwise, you'll end up with, trash.
So responsible entity, maybe we could add the Mel community. Would that be something that you guys could help with? It doesn't mean you have to do it, it just is an
It's a
identifying.
consideration,
Yeah.
something maybe that.
We have a hard enough time keeping people doing things they shouldn't into the transfer site
Yeah.
because there's no oversight. You know what I mean? And people giving out the code and gate or the key and letting other people out of the community dump things. So. Not so sure about gigantic. Outside of them, but you can look into that.
Sure. Could that be a responsible entity that we could add to it for the potential of creation?
Included in the CWPP is protection of native heritage sites. You can see that the CWPP boundaries go down, follow the river down to, Haslina Lake specifically, for that reason. And then we have another one, we might change the order of these, up just a little bit. The last one right now is identifying fill reduction projects. And included in there, it would be retreating any existing projects. And I think, you know, we can probably move that to a different location on the list, probably a little higher, at least the not last, place on the list. We've certainly observing what's taking place on the Nelchina Glacier fire with the mastication lines and the planning that's going in. Some fuel breaks around where the, you know, clusters of houses are, is certainly efforts well spent that have a long time payoff. So I could see, you know, moving that to a different location on here. A little higher up. And then another thing that's not listed on here right now, that sort of observing the operations taking place on the fire would be to identify some areas on these lakes with remote properties where helicopters can land. So they're already pre-identified and they could potentially be, you know, staging locations for caches of structure protection equipment or something like that, especially if we needed to create one, improve a spot for safe landing. So I think that would be worthwhile to put on here, just planning ahead for, you know, the potential or future fire impacting the area. What are we missing? Anybody think of something that we didn't think of or that wasn't already provided through input?
Well, the good news is that this is a living document where changes can be made and discussed at any time. So once this is done and it's signed and it's submitted to the state, if there is something major that is need to edit this document, that is possible. A review and an update of this CWPP is recommended to take place every 3 years. Not to exceed 5 years. At the 10-year mark, this CWPP will expire. So updates, the review and the update needs to happen before that time frame. And again, if you go home, you want some light reading, you pick up your CWPP and you're reading, or like have some ideas that come to you, you see some edits that need to be made, how can you get that information to us? So if you go to our website, again, you go to the very top of CWPP by community, you click on the Mendeltna and Nelchina area, scroll down and you are going to come across, please take our online survey. Again, you just right click, open a new tab, and here is the survey. So it is a copied out of your CWPP itself. So just reviewing exactly what's in front of you and giving any input that you have. So you review it, and then on the very last question down here, providing any feedback that you have. And if you ever need to get in contact with us, again, our information is in your folders, but it's also here I can get over to it, to the contact button here on our website. And you'll have all of our information here for both Jenny, myself, and our fire management officer.
Question for you ladies.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for doing the reviews?
This, Leia, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I would love to. We have just built a brand new, how's my volume? Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, and hey, do you wanna introduce yourself? We should have had you do that, I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. No, it's okay. Also, there's a lot of bird noise in the background. I apologize. My window is open. My name is Leah Mitchell. I'm the statewide CWPP coordinator for Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. So I work really closely with Emily. I am based out of Anchorage, and I'm kind of like the CWPP shepherd at the state level. So I just started last fall, and I'm trying to create a standardized kind of toolkit for how we approach this process going forward so that there's continuity and consistency in our plans across the board, kind of from this planning batch that Emily and Jenny have been working on from these plans forward. So we have an internal, what I call kind of a tech review process, where we have a host of subject matter experts through part of our forestry part of our organization. The half of our organization is foresters, and the other half is fire protection folks. So I get together a group of about 6 different reviewers, tech reviewers, and then we pump the plans through that review process. They're given a couple of weeks to review and submit feedback and share their notes, and then we incorporate their notes and edits into the plan. Much like we would with the public. So when the public shares input, we fold that into the plan as well. And then the tech review gets completed. And then once the public feedback is incorporated, then it goes to the final signatories. Does that answer the question okay?
So the state keeps up with this.
Correct.
So if we end up here expiring in 10 years, that's a state issue. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Well, awesome. We want to thank everyone for joining us. For those of you online, you and I just taking a minute and writing your name and your email in the chat. That would be very much appreciated. And for those of you that are in person, we do have funding written into our grants to provide food for our meetings. So we have some Subway that we brought down here that we're gonna put out for you. So please take some and enjoy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and happy to do any side conversations, any thoughts that come or any more feedback that comes to your head. Go ahead, and, now's a good time to talk to us and have those conversations.
Leah, will you stop the recording?
There's also coffee here